Dylan, what were your thoughts on this week's Real Housewives of New York?
New York. Like I say this every single week, but this one maybe more than most. Great episode for Jenna. She was spitting wisdom this whole episode. I thought she was very, very wise. She was very, I thought, even keeled, and like I thought that the way that she dealt with like Jessel and Sai, by like kind of taking supporting Jessel while also being totally like sympathetic to why that's kind of hurtful to Sai to make those sort of comparisons between Jessel's uncle and Sai's mother, and being like very understanding on both sides and just having some smart things to say. I thought it was a good episode for that Jessel or for that Jenna wisdom.
Yeah, totally. I also really loved the scene that we got between Jenna and her son. Just giving us more of her personal story, which was kind of the knock at her right out of the gate this season, was that she wasn't showing a lot of her personal life, but I feel like we're getting that fleshed out now, and her talking about her relationship with her mother and how that contrasts the relationship that she has with her son. Yeah, I agree. This was a pretty good episode for Jenna.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how she says like the people who give us the least are the ones that we most want, like their approval. That's wisdom. That's truth. She's spitting truth there. Yeah.
Yeah, you could put that in a fortune cookie.
For sure. And maybe another side hustle for Jenna could be fortune cookies. I think that Swingers, the crazy golf club, which is the full name of the bar they go to, is like seems exactly like the kind of place that Erin and Abe would invite people to. Seems incredibly lame to me.
Yeah, my first comment in my notes for that scene was like, what the fuck is this place? Like mini golf themed restaurant with this like really tacky floral decor is really hard to put my finger on.
Yeah, and they call it Swingers, so I assumed it was going to be Swingers themed, and maybe like the floral decor is supposed to be like, you know, Swingers like late 60s, early 70s themed, but they definitely didn't like go in for like that like period aesthetic. It was just like kind of ugly, and we have mini putt, and I'll give props to Jessel as being the one person who showed up fully committed to dressing like it's 1969. You know, like she's the one who seemed to really like buy into the idea that we're going to a place called Swingers. Erin says it's a swingers party. I'm gonna like have a swingers thematic look. You know, I'm gonna dress like the swingers era, and nobody else really seemed to try.
No, this place seemed like, you know how sometimes you can tell when someone like has a joke, but they've definitely started from the punchline and worked their way backwards. It was like when they were planning this restaurant, they started with like the name, the idea to give lame people like Erin and Abe the ability to be like, hey, you want to come to this Swingers, and work their way backwards from that for a restaurant concept.
Yeah. And when you were leaning really heavily on like just like we have a kid's game that you can play, it's a bad sign. Like that if you're using that as a crutch. There is this bar in Montreal that's called the Ping Pong Bar, and I hated it so much because the bar that it replaced was like this really cool lesbian bar, and then they replaced it with a place called the Ping Pong Bar, and it was just like a totally lame bar that resembles every other bar, except there's like little white plastic balls that will occasionally fly across your table and maybe hit you on the head or land in your glass because people are playing ping pong in the middle of the bar, and then just everybody's on all fours trying to find the ball. That's just a terrible idea. Anyways, don't build your bar around a game unless it's bowling. Bowling works. Darts, okay. I mean, pool doesn't even count because it's just a staple.
Yeah, well, where have you been to a darts themed restaurant?
I guess there aren't darts themed restaurant. They're just pubs that have darts.
Yeah,
they could get dangerous at a restaurant.
That could be a place in Minneapolis that had like lawn bowling on the roof and bocce ball on the roof, and that was good. But it wasn't like the main thing. Like the restaurant's identity wasn't that.
Yeah,
at least it didn't feel that way.
It wasn't like the crazy golf club.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's just now occurring to me that maybe they only called it Swingers because you swing a golf club, and maybe it has nothing to do with like 60s swinging culture.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's totally what it was.
That's what you think it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. So do you think
Like
that
that's
Jessel, like me, Jessel assumed that it was like a swingers party, as in like we're going to like, pretend it's 1969 and we're hooking up with each other's spouses, and
yeah, for sure,
and
because
she
that's
was
the
the
way it
only
was
one who.
sold.
That's
That's the whole
right.
idea behind the name is that you can like pull the rug out from under someone and be like, haha, we're playing mini
Okay.
golf. What did you think?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Jessel fell for it. She fell for the gag.
Yeah, or she just leaned into it.
Yeah.
Like
Either way,
she
props to her. I
yeah.
liked her outfit. I thought it was very like Scooby Doo. Uh, great job.
This was probably like the highlight of the episode for me was this whole scene. Even though like the fight within it was a lot of Jessel and Sai going over territory that they covered previously in the last lunch, but I thought adding the husbands to that mix added a little bit
Yeah.
more interest to the dynamic.
Because they got to rehash it with allies present now. It's not just like a one-on-one awkward conversation. Now they're surrounded by potential allies and partners.
Yeah. And so much of this like Real Housewives of New York season is kind of trying to figure out what works for this new iteration of the franchise. And this felt a little bit to me like, oh, I wonder if the men have some chemistry and we can get like something going like we have on Real Housewives of New Jersey where they can like
Hmm.
bust their balls and that's fun. And I feel like Sai's husband tried to do that, but he just comes
Yeah.
across as like such a phony asshole that like
You
it
think so?
didn't land for me. Yeah, I
I
think so.
I'm kind of starting to like Dave, honestly. That's his name, right?
Oh
Dave?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think
I'm
it's
kind of
Dave.
starting to like. I think the point where he looked worse, I think, in this episode was when he asked Ubah, like, "So why are you single?" Like he tried to he set it up in a way that tried to be like really complimentary and gentle, but it's still like
Mhm.
a question that I think you don't ask a woman. Like, just why are you
Yeah,
single, anyways?
or
But
anyone really.
yeah, yeah. Or I mean, yeah, you could phrase it in a way like, "So are you somebody who would rather not be in a relationship?" Or I don't know, but just for saying the words "Why are you single?" is like it risks offending anybody. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
always that risk there. But I think that Dave does come off as somebody who is like actually very very supportive of his wife, like the fact that he got like Sai's mother's paintings made into like a little professional book as a gift, that's really thoughtful. That's a really sweet, thoughtful thing,
oh,
right?
that was him that did that. I didn't realize that. Yeah, that is thoughtful. I
I,
I thought that
yeah.
was touching.
And he was like, when he's like saying that like why he loves Sai is because she's the most honest person he's ever met. It felt like more like it felt kind of passionate and heartfelt. He feels like somebody who is like a strong ally and like really like fights for his wife. So I think that's why I like him. I think that when he first started showing off in the show, he really rubbed me the wrong way. He seemed like a douchey guy, but I think that just seeing like how like supportive and apparently loving he is of Sai. I mean, it's a small sample size, so we'll just see
Yeah,
some more to judge. But based on this past episode, I thought we saw a lot of indications that he is like a very strong partner who's like very supportive and stuff.
yeah.
So that's
I
why
it,
I'm warming up to him because of that.
I mean, a lot of what we've seen from him lately has been in comparison to Abe, who actually comes across as a way bigger asshole, in my opinion. Like
Sure.
some of the comments that he said at the first double date dinner that they had, where he's like, "Oh yeah, I'd be fucking someone else." Like that's how you're going to present yourself on TV. Like you're not funny.
Yeah.
It's, and then again, like at this one, Abe made some comment about how he like just loves receiving oral from Erin. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
put that out there in front of your friends and the cameras, and like I don't know, it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like he
Totally.
comes across as a dick.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree. Yeah. Just like I'm
Um,
always asking for blowjobs every morning. I'm just like, why don't we put on the 1973 Grateful Dead live album and you could just you could just give me an old BJ and sometimes if I clean the dishes, she says yes. Very
yeah,
like lame energy coming from both of those two.
yeah, totally. Ubah's response to Dave's question about why she was single was really good. I loved her like leaning into it,
Mhm.
like, let's all close our eyes and ask God in our own language.
Yes, let's close our eyes. Speak to God in your own language. I love it because it can either be sincere or just mocking him for like asking the question. Either way,
Yeah.
it's hilarious. I think it's both at the same time coming
Yeah.
from Uba. Yeah,
But yeah, like again, the husband chemistry here is just not doing it for me. Like when as soon as they get away to the golf course, the mini golf course, they're like 2 feet away. You can see them in the background of the shots between Jessel and Sai arguing, and they're like, "Oh, let's toast to being away from our wives." Like,
yeah,
what year is this? It's almost like sometimes you see on these housewife shows when you've got a partner on there, they are putting on way more of a front than their wives are on this, because they're like, oh, what if someone I know sees me? I got to make sure they don't think I'm gay for being on this
right,
show.
right.
Like that's kind of the energy that I get from some of the people that show up on these shows.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was totally what I get. Like, oh, let's pretend to be, the masculine guys that like, oh, the wife's such a drag.
Yeah. Hey, a blue ball. That's for you, Pavitt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
and
something about the Jersey husbands that like it works, because
sure.
I feel like they more often will kind of let their guard down. Maybe I think like the key to that dynamic is Frank, because he is so like he totally challenges what you think when you look at those guys, and he's able to like be very like emotionally vulnerable and like in touch with his feelings, and is in like a kind of non-traditional situation with Dolores. And so there's something that kind of like challenges your view of these guys, but they also like have kind of that fun part of the ball busting
Yeah.
that you get when you're in a like a good group of guys, and it makes it a lot more interesting to watch than these guys that are making the same like stupid street jokes about like my wife's such a drag.
Yeah. Because if the cameras weren't on, they'd probably be like, "Hey, Pavitt, you got a number for the people you go see in Vietnam? Because maybe I'll go."
Yeah. So this was another thing. Like, so what do you think is worse? Like pretending to flirt with Abe at a function, like the vow renewal function, or implying that Pavitt is like a sex tourist and going to exploit people?
What's worse? Though, I mean, like I've said before, I think pretending to flirt with Abe or flirting with Abe, because again, I think that it's like a false distinction between pretending to flirt and flirting,
Right.
or it's a mushy distinction, anyways. I think it's funny and cool, and I don't think that that Erin should have been that upset about it. Or as far as implying that Pavitt's doing sex tourism, I'm still not convinced he isn't. To be honest, I think
Right.
he finally was able to give a reason that's a little bit better than just I want a banh mi or I want points, which is just that I just want some fucking time to myself. Which he didn't like say it that way, but that's kind of like
Yeah.
what the answer they got out of him. That is seems like a somewhat more realistic reason than the other like bullshit reasons that were given. Is it a strong enough explanation to dethrone he's doing sex tourism as the most likely explanation? I'm not sure. But it's a stronger challenger than I wanted to eat a banh mi.
So at first, when he was kind of going over his explanation at this dinner, I was like, "Oh, this story is like just keeps on evolving and changing, and it's making me believe it a lot less than I did, last week. Week by week, it's kind of eroding my confidence in him." But
Mhm.
then at the end of this scene where he's trying to navigate this question about like, why do you love your wife, and he's like just really struggling to like
Yeah.
say something that works. And then again, we get a scene later where the scene where he calls Sai bipolar. It's like he just is not good at these social
Yeah.
situations and is so awkward. It made me believe his explanation more. Like, okay, there is like something there that he just wants to like not want to not want to say, but it's not nefarious. He just like is trying to find a way to navigate this and is not able to.
Yeah, he definitely really stumbled through this episode. Like, yeah, it was really a bad look when he's like has to follow up Dave and Abe and come up with a reason for why he loves his wife so much. And it's like, yeah, she's doesn't ask too many questions.
Yeah.
All the phrases he comes up with are just some version of like she's not too much in the way. Which is really just such a bad look, and especially because Jessel after is like, oh, that's so sweet, like tries to sell it. It's like, no, Jessel, we heard the actual words he said. Sorry. It did not come off as that sweet. But I am willing to believe, yeah, that he's just like maybe a little exhausted with his life and just sees this as one way that he could just like spend some time away from his wife and kids and have an excuse to like not answer the phone and like not be there. Maybe he's just like that fucking fed up and doesn't and can't think of another way to do it, another way to get out, except for being like, cheap plane tickets, I got to get these for the points. I'm gonna sit in an airplane for 3 days. That's the best he could come up with as a way to just get the fuck out of the house. I don't know. That's the best explanation. And when that's the best explanation, it's not a great look for him. And and it was also, like you said, it was like a bad look when he goes into attack Sai, and he should be attacking Sai, right? Like that's his job. He absolutely, Sai's been going hard against Jessel. It is his job to defend Jessel and to attack Sai. He absolutely should be attacking Sai there. That's his job as a husband. He should not be doing it with like DSM-5 language. He should have just said two-faced. You know, you shouldn't have trotted out the word bipolar. And it's like you can see him just like he's like, all right, I'm gonna say my bit, and then he says it. They're like, oh, you should retract that. And he's like, yeah. Whatever. This is what happens when I try.
But this episode definitely like solidified Jessel and Pavitt's place on this show for me, because I need to see more of this really uncomfortable dynamic that they've got. And I think that Jessel handles conflict in a compelling way. Like it's compelling to watch her kind of pick and choose what she wants to really respond to and dig in. And also she's got that lack of self-awareness that I think is key for being a one way that you can be a really good housewife is to lack some self-awareness. Like we see that with like Luann de Lesseps is like that. And well, there's too many housewives that lack self-awareness to name them all, but I think that she possesses that. So she's a lock for next season for me.
She does have an awkwardness which is kind of entertaining, and like when she's trying to describe like why she's so shocked by what Sai's doing, she keeps saying like it's like she just like turned a leaf and it's like it just changed from 1 minute to the next after we got back from Anguilla, and everybody keeps saying, yeah, but she was angry at you in Anguilla too. And she's like, well, I don't know, maybe. I settled on the idea that it just came out of nowhere when we returned to New York, so that's what I'm sticking with.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought was notable here was when Abe was talking about why he loves Erin. He was talking about how like he wants to be with someone who isn't boring. Like ultimately it's like, I wanted someone who isn't boring, and it's like you got the most boring person in the room sitting next to you.
I mean, I think compared to Abe, yeah, sure, Erin is a fascinating personality, but compared to the average human being, let alone the average person sitting in that room, yeah, she's boring as shit. They're just a boring couple. That's part of their charm, really.
Yeah.
Just
and
a couple of boring dorks.
It's starting to like resonate with me why like he's such a target for Brynn to like bust his balls by flirting with him. It's because he's so flat and boring, and sometimes you just kind of make a target out of yourself if you have no personality or you're not knowing how to respond to a situation. It's fun to like poke at someone like that. So it's starting to, the picture is starting to fill out.
For sure. Sometimes like the funniest like kid to tease is the one who doesn't react very much. It's like when you like
Yeah.
make funny faces at your dog just so they kind of stare at you. Like it's like the the one who isn't going to know how to react is going to be the funniest target for like for joshing with or flirting with.
Yeah. I guess next week we'll probably not get very much of Jenna since she's going to Scotland or something, which is a little disappointing that she's not going to be present. But Ubah, we got to see a fair amount this episode, and she's hawking her hot sauce, which is a housewife business that I very much appreciate.
Yeah. I love how they like I love how we get to see behind the scenes of that kind of branding fiction where like you have like a branding partnership and you have to pretend like it's a collaboration, and like we have to pretend like this special burger they make is like a collaboration between Ubah and the restaurant. And then we got the scene of them being like, let's get in the kitchen and see if we can cook up something together, bounce some ideas off each other. They go in the kitchen and it's like he's got his whole sandwich already made, like it's already been all prepared in advance, and he just assembles it, like just puts a couple things together. It's like, oh, how about this? Wow, it's so good. Like, okay, awesome collab, guys. Real meeting of the minds there. Pretzel bread is really good though, but it's another like side of Ubah's adorable lack of connection that she's like, they have this thing called pretzel bread.
Yeah. It was like she had to collaborate with like the site that invented pretzel bread in her mind.
Right.
Do you have any other highlights from this episode of New York?
I kind of did a double take when like Jenna's glasses shopping with her son, and they're like, the salesman's like, it's Japanese acetate, and she's like, oh, why is that good? And he's like, it's organic. I was like, does that make sense? It just kind of felt like just throwing out buzzwords. I actually did look up Japanese acetate after, because I was like, is there any ways this makes sense? And I guess Japanese acetate is a kind of plastic that's not petroleum based, so maybe he meant organic in the sense that it's not petroleum based. Still felt kind of like it was just like, I'll just say a buzzword like, yeah, the lenses are vegan. Like, let's just go over to the till, see the price tag. That's carbon neutral. That's
before we move on to Salt Lake City, I'm gonna spring this on you. I want to try this out, see if it sticks. Let's give each of the housewives a score out of 10 for this episode. So let's start with Jenna.
Just for this episode,
yeah.
Okay. 12
out of 10. Okay.
You know I love my queen Jenna.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm the head of the fan club.
I gave her a 7.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's room. I thought she was good. She wasn't like one of the standouts for me this episode, but she was good. There's room to improve from that. Next up, we got Brynn.
So, good line, well read about the bit like, you shouldn't be poking holes in people's story. It's the only places you should be poking holes is in rich guys' condoms. It's a good joke. She delivered it well. So just based on that, because I'm struggling to think of anything else she did this episode, it's 9.
A 9?
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
Yeah, I gave her an 8. There was that line that stood out to me that I really enjoyed. Plus, when she was kind of relaying information back to Jessel at the end there, and then in the confessional, she's got, "Am I stirring the pot?" Yes, but that's what you need to do. And I thought, like, yeah, you know the job, you're doing the job. I appreciate that. Again, not super key in a lot of scenes here, but it was enough to earn an 8 for me.
Plus, we're getting more of that. We're getting more of that confessional look where she's dressed like Jackie Kennedy for some reason. So, sure, that gives me high marks too, I guess.
Yeah, we've seen I feel like we've seen comparatively few confessional looks from Brynn versus the other women. Mm-hmm. So yeah, not sure what's up with that. Sai.
I like Sai's anger. I like that she brings anger to the show.
Yeah.
Whereas most of the people don't. I do I do like her attacking Jessel. I do like that. I like her with her aunt too. That was her aunt, right? In the house, yeah.
Yeah.
They've got good rapport. They seem to get along really well. Um, it- I think Sai is a pretty good argument for that there is something to it, the idea that like the kind of like loudmouth, always slightly angry New Yorkers are actually like living in a very healthy way.
Yeah.
Like there is something like Dave would say that is like very honest, and I appreciate that. And yeah, there's like a high energy that's like verging onto like a negative, angry kind of energy coming from Sai, which I like. I think that's cool. So I thought I like the way that she attacked Jessel. Honestly, I don't think she went pretty hard, but I don't think it was like totally out of line. I think she kind of has I she's right, I think, to be a little upset that Jessel would bring up this thing about her uncle's alcoholism and compare it. It is kind of apples to oranges, as she says. Not the expression I would have chosen there. Mostly because it's an expression I just don't use. I don't like the expression apples to oranges. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, because if you're saying like these two things cannot be compared, well, you know what? It's very easy to compare apples and
Yeah, they're
oranges.
both fruit.
They're both like the two of the most popular fruits that are often eaten in the same settings. Lunchtime snack, juices.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Eminently comparable. People do compare them all the time. Oranges are much better. The expression
Yeah,
should be like,
absolutely.
it's like comparing refrigerators to Macronesian
Oranges.
island states or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It should be two very different things. Anyway, but to bring back to the point, I think Sai's anger is like pretty justified and not totally out of line and kind of entertaining and refreshing and seems kind of honest. So I give her a high marks too. I'll give her 8.
Oh, okay. That's I gave her a 6, similar to what you were feeling in terms of justification, but I just seem to be grading lower than you are on a whole. So these
Yeah,
numbers will normalize as we work this out, I think. If we continue doing this thing, which is a fun exercise, I think we'll kind of land on some stability in these scores. But next up, we've got Erin.
um, yeah. I mean, Aaron's the one I like the least. I think I haven't really hidden that fact.
Yeah.
Wow, what did she even do this episode? I mean, yeah, admitted she gave a blowjob in the morning. Um, Other than that, I mean, she hosted the party. I guess she picked the worst fucking bar in all of New York City to host their party. One.
Yeah, you get okay. So I gave her a 5, and the only thing that like gave her a passing grade for me was one for offering up her mouth to Abe, and two, I thought that she had a line. I think it was in a confessional, or maybe it was in that scene at Swingers where she was like, "Everyone's got a drunk uncle or cousin," like, and that really actually like it was funny the way she delivered it, which is something that we don't often see from her. But also, I feel like that kind of put into perspective size feelings about this. Like,
Mm.
I think when I was viewing things, I was viewing them more from Jessel's perspective and being like, okay, she's trying to find a way to connect and people are just mean girling her. But this is like, yeah, I guess that is like kind of different because like, a lived experience where you're the person that is raising you is struggling with this, it would be hitting so much more close to home than, drunk uncle from the SNL bit at that you see at Thanksgiving.
Right. I do think in Jessel's defense, I do think I remember her saying that she lived with her uncle for years too.
Right.
So I think that if he wasn't necessarily the person who raised her, she did spend, I think, a lot of her childhood or maybe early adulthood or some
I
combination
think it
of the
was like
two.
when she went to school in New York, when she moved to New York to go to school.
Okay. Like as an adult or as like
As an
high
adult,
school? Okay. Yeah. So that's actually not the same thing as a parent. But I mean, it is somebody she was living with. So in
right.
her
Yeah.
defense, it's not like the same thing as like, oh, old Uncle George shows up at a function twice a year and passes out. Like, though I think Jenna again put it better when instead of like impugning the fact that it's just an uncle, when she said like of Sai, yeah, but that's her mother, like just putting
Right.
emphasis on the fact that for Sai it was her mother, like that's
Yeah.
um that's a different situation when it's your mother. Yeah.
How about Ubah?
Uba, I mean, again, that praying moment was just a classic bit
Yeah.
from her. Another absolutely classic bit from her. Looks like we're gonna get some more, maybe secrets coming out. Secrets. I don't know if it's secrets she's got to do it in Connecticut. Maybe.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah. I mean, just based on her response to Dave's question, that's a knockout right there. That's, I'll say 9.
9. Okay,
Yeah.
I gave her a 7. But yeah, I think high marks for just being being there and being Ubah. That's like
That's all she needs to do.
that's all she needs to do, and she did it. She did it well. So
Yeah, she just
yeah,
has to be in the room, say something very weird every once in a while. Yeah, just bring her energy.
yeah, totally. Okay, and finally, Jessel.
Um, so like she made for a good source of entertainment, I think, as you're alluding to, because she's kind of not handling her shit very well. But I have to dock her marks for not handling her shit well. I think she's reacting poorly. Just like not she's struggling to come up with like a counter narrative, like, to use against Sai that's like coherent and cutting. Like she should be having just a strong story about like how like Sai has no right to talk about my husband that way. Yeah, she just needs like a strong like through line of like why Sai is doing something very inappropriate, so that she can rally her friends around her and be like, we have to talk about how Sai is like out of control and inappropriate and stuff. She's just not reacting strongly, not reacting well. Again, marks for the outfit, it ruled. But not necessarily for the performance. I'll give her 3.
Okay, wow. I gave her an 8.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I liked the fact that she was like involved in all this drama is automatically gonna like give you a mark, at least a 4. If you're totally getting owned, I still think that you need to get at least a 4. Um, and I don't think that she doesn't feel like she's being owned in this, even though she's not handling things well, and she's kind of coming across as playing things weak, which is something that I criticize Real Housewives of Orange County, the newcomer Jen. Um,
Mhm.
it still is like engaging to watch her navigate this in kind of this disorganized like way. It's compelling to see, how she's gonna like ping pong through this situation. And one of the things is like a lot of the attacks that Sai has been trying to make against her, just like they might hit, but they're not like sticking. And she's just kind of like, okay, well, whatever. I don't really have the self-awareness to like internalize that and like process it and like really really be hurt by that. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's so yeah, I just think that it's been fun to watch her navigate these situations. So I gave her an 8 here.
All right. Strong divergence of opinions there. But I
Yeah,
see
yeah.
what you mean. Yeah.